Picked the wrong week and quit sniffing glue.
Cry havoc! And let's slip the dogs of war!
Welcome back, everybody. It's week 2 on the Kronos 2 builds. And as you can tell, I have a mess of plastic here. It's a Monday. It's a Monday. I've got a million things going at the same time, and I needed to sit down and just concentrate here. I have, over the weekend, caught the other build up to the current state of this build. This is the build that will be getting the kit lighting in it, so I'm going to start wiring some of that stuff in. But first I am finalizing some of the paint masks that I need to have done before I can go too much further. And I am doing the tan plates. Now here you can see I've sprayed the tan on the kit. And I have masked off the areas that I wish to keep tan. Now there's a couple, 3 more masks that I need to do, and that's why I was in the throes of where I was. Let me see. I need this guy that goes around the lower pylon here. And again, it's not something I usually do on camera because there's usually an amount of cussing involved. So go ahead and mask these. And that's it. There are all of these shapes that we did before on the Katinga. None of those get masks now, so that's a wonderful time saver. Let's see, this guy, this raised shape here, and that goes here, and this last one goes here. And then once I get the ones on this side, obviously I just finish the ones on the other side, and then we'll be ready to spray the crimson color. So I'm just double checking. Oh, now see, that looks a bit, yeah, that's not going on. I mean, that's doing what it's supposed to do, but it's not fitting quite as exactly as I would like. So what I'll do is I will mark what needs to be changed, go back to the computer file, and make the changes. You know, that's not so bad once I got it in the right place. Now this vinyl will take a certain amount of it'll allow a certain amount of stretching, and I suppose I could live with just trimming that, but that's a big enough area that I could change that on the file. So let's do that. And these are the last guys here. They all get this tan masking because they need to stay tan. Let's make sure I've got the... Nope, I had the wrong side. That's the problem with these. They're very similar. You just have to make sure you are using the exact one that you want. Alright, I have the next color ready to go, and that is going to be... Oh, I need my water dish. That is going to be the dark brown. When I say dark brown, it's actually brown and tan. So this will be the brown part, and it's for these guys here, which I need to unmask because I have done that part. Come off of there. It's for... Okay, it's for these guys, and there are 2 more shapes up in here, these guys. So I can pull these off and paint the areas where they're going to go so that I can mask them once they're dry. Alright, so it's almost time for lunch, and I need to run a couple of errands. Got to take an order to the post office, that sort of thing. So this is a good place to stop for the moment. I've got the brown painted on. got everything masked off that I need to protect from that brown. And when this has dried, I will come back and put masks over these areas as well. And the next thing we will paint will be the crimson color. Okay, so imagine all this but times 2. Here you see the dark brown has been painted on the bottom. The dark brown has been painted on the top. I've got some of the crimson on the head here and masked off where those need to be cleaned back up with the gray spray paint. I was thinking of doing the other tower today, but I might hold that off and do that tomorrow morning. Let's see. Now I can mask those. I think I've got those masks cut. It's just a question of whether I can lay my hands on them. Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday. Big day ahead of us, I think. I am getting ready to paint some red on here. Now, you've got a bit of red on you. Yes, I've got the dark brown we did yesterday. I've masked that off this morning. So now we can put the red on, which is these spots here on the bottom. There's some red around here on the bottom. And then there's these candy cane stripes on the top and these shapes. I've got these shapes already done up as masks. I need to do the masking for these guys so that after I paint them, I can mask them off and do the final gray over top of everything. The reason I haven't done that yet is I wanted to make sure all of the paint underneath it was dry. You can see I've got the red done on the bottom here, the crimson done on the bottom, and it's looking kind of messy. Yes, it is. It'll neaten itself up as we go, because what I'm doing, well, you know what I'm doing. What I'm getting at is there's one last area down here that needs to have some red stripes put on it. And that's what you see what's going on here. Now, to do that, I have removed... Shut up, you! There, turn you off. What I had done is I've removed this much of the original mask. Here you can see, and this is why it's good to have two of these running at the same time. Here you can see the mask is in place. Well, I've cut this much of it away, and I've removed it, and there you can see the nice white pristine kit underneath that. And to that, we are going to add these masks for these red stripes. Now, what I'd like to do is, first of all, get the right one, because this is the one for the wrong side, is to show you where that shape is going to be. Here is what that mask looks like. I will cut this out of the sheet just so you can see it. This is what it looks like on the mask, on the masking sheet. There is a shape inside there, and then there is this perimeter mask. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the shape inside. See, when I pull that out, you can see the donut that's left. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place this on the kit. And I'm going to place it where I think it needs to go. And that's going to look something like... I don't want to stretch this. This is long and skinny, and as such it is prone to stretch. And move this stuff out of the way. Okay. This wants to sit something like that. That's going to sit something like that, and I'm going to push it down. Nice light pressure. You can see it goes to the absolute end of the white shape there. That's because stop it. That's because the red stripe there is going to the absolute end of the white mask. So this is the area that's what you see is yellow right here. That's going to be painted red. So once we've got that in place and we're happy with where it is, And I'm going to double check. I want to make sure that that is, yeah, I'm more or less happy with where that is. Okay. Now, I'm going to take the donut shape and I'm going to surround it. And that's going to give me, this may not be easy to do on camera, but we're going to do it anyway. I might have to make that donut a little wider, make the walls of it a little wider so that it's maybe not so clumsy. A little easier to work with. Okay, I'm going to fit this around and we'll come right back. I went ahead and put everything down, but I wanted to show you. So I put the middle things down, and then I put the donut around them, and that allows me to peel this back up. And what that does is it gives me the shape of the red stripe. Now I'm going to run some painter's tape around the outside edge of that to mask the outer bits of it. But I also did the same thing with the hash marks here, but because there's a thick frame around it and it isn't big and long and floppy, all I did was take out all of the inner shapes. And actually I can show you, maybe I'll show you that on the other one since I'm doing both of them at the same time. But here is what the other side looks like with the stripe taken out. And I'm ready to paint the, I don't know how this got broken into two parts, but it did. Okay, so here are the negative shapes that I'm going to spray into. So what I need to do is to tape off the outer perimeter. We're on the second hull here, and I've gone ahead and put the positive stripe down so you can see what we're talking about. This is the negative shape, and there's a very easy way to align that. There's a whole grid line here, and there's a whole line here, and I'm just lining this corner up with that, so that kind of forces everybody else to fall in line there. The donuts went down a lot easier this time, I guess just through sheer repetition. But now that those are down, I can remove the shape that's on the inside, and that will give me the area that needs to be painted. Now, next thing to do is to take some painter's tape and just do the perimeter here. There's a bunch of Kronos 2s. Yeah, ignore the yellow. The yellow is really throwing everything off because that's just the color of the masking. Once you remove all of that, you're going to get back to the red and the gray and the tans and browns that actually is. But the yellow right now makes it look very much more Romulan than Klingon at this point. Looks like a big old Firebird. But this was the last of the big scale painting until we get to the nacelle work, I think. But trust me, I have confidence it'll look like this when we get done. So and look like this when we get done. So try not to get too invested in how much yellow there is there. And I wanted to get back to doing some actual building today. So while the paint it's mostly dry, but I am kind of poking around at seeing what parts I can put together. And I put these sidewalls on. Now, it's one thing I just noticed, or not just noticed, but I had noticed earlier, is that you lose the R2 foot. The original sidewalls had, let me see if because you still get a copy of that piece in the kit, is the R2 foot. And I'm gonna see if I can, do I have it? Yes, here's a piece. Here's an example. That's the R2 foot right there. That's the sidewall. It's the outside of R2's foot. That part has been exempted off of this, off of the Kronos 1. Apparently it didn't make the cut. But what happens is you're left with the two places where the R2 foot kind of goes onto the kit like that. That doesn't happen anymore. So what do you do with those? Well, kind of sneakily in the instructions, it just kind of says, oh, fill those in. Doesn't say with what, doesn't say how, doesn't say where. I would have preferred just a little flat plate to go over there, if that's what we're going to. I know it's not, may not be screen accurate, but I'm a little bit too late to be pulling out any putty to put in there. So what to do? There's a part that goes here. I don't know exactly how I'm going to dress that up. I might just end up putting a piece of sheet stock over that. You know, or you could use the original part with the R2 foot in it. That seems to be about the only difference. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. And I also was looking through the instructions, and we're supposed to get rid of this piece and this piece. Again, I can understand them not wanting to retool everything, but that's a little bit of work that was not expecting to have to do. There, that made the Sonic Saber made short work of it, but I've got this all cut off and sanded down, and the same there. I'm leaving this wishbone on here, but those two raised details had to come off, and I'm just doing a bit of filing to make sure that everything's nice and even. And I think while I'm of the right mindset, I will go ahead and do that on the other kit as well, so that I have both of those taken care of. Upon scouring the instructions to see if there are any more pieces we should be removing, I was reminded of these that were actually in the photo etch instructions, but also repeated here, thankfully enough. See, it can be done. There are bits on this front panel that need to be removed. These two guys that stick out, and then these two guys. So we're going to slice those off on both kits, and maybe that will be it. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Madhouse. It's Wednesday. Believe it or not, this is progress. It doesn't look like it, but trust me, it's there. We are getting ready to go forward. Unfortunately, to do that, we need to go backwards just a tiny bit. I am looking at covering up all of these red markings, crimson markings, so that I can spray the final overall gray color. Now, to do that, I have to go backwards in as much as I have to remove these guys that I put on yesterday, because I have to remask this white shape. This white shape needs to stay white, and to do that I need to cover that back up, and it's going to be easier to do that if I can remove these guys first. But the nice thing about that is you get to see some of the final paint color. Let me go ahead and take this off so you can see look at those red stripes. Aren't those beautiful? And this was the donut thing that we put on yesterday. That looks great. And we will do that again on this side. Look at that. Lovely. Now those shapes, this white shape here, needs to be recovered. We are going to cover this area back up using the original mask as a guide. Okay, there's that white shape, and we'll do the same on the other side. Okay, so we're at a pretty momentous spot right now. All of the red has been, crimson, has been masked over, and we're ready to spray a gray over top of all of this. And that gray is going to be our final top color. We're going to do that on the top and bottom of the main back hull. Okay, everything has gotten a good dousing of gray, and we're looking closer to traditional Klingon colors than we ever did before. So we're going to let that dry. I'm going to cut them back a few hours from now and see if anything needs a second coat. Maybe we'll let it dry, see if it's the right color of gray. I think it is. It's very close to the primer gray. I might want to go a touch lighter, but we can do that just by mixing a little bit of white into the gray that I've got. We don't need to get another color out. So we're going to let this dry and come back to it. Alrighty, I'm back from lunch and I've let the gray dry. And I'm thinking to myself, this could stand to be a little lighter. I took it outside, looked at it in the sun, brought it back in, looked at it on the bench. It is darker than the primer sealer, and that's kind of the color I was going for, was the primer sealer gray. And it's a little bit darker than that, and by the time I put the weathering on it, that's my issue. By the time I put the weathering and the washes on it, I'm afraid it's going to go too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the remainder of my jar of neutral gray, which is what I use for my base. I'm going to dump a healthy dose of sky gray into it to lighten it up. What I want is something that is 3/4 of the way between medium or neutral gray and sky gray. Sky gray is too light, so sky gray is more of a base color that I would use on an Enterprise or something. So we're going to dump, I think we're going to do this scientifically. We are going to use these droppers, and now I know why they're so cheap, because they are so cheap. I've got a big bag of these droppers and they don't last a tenth as long as the old droppers. It's a good thing they don't cost a tenth as much. So what I've taken is, this is some sky gray that I've had that was used on the last project on the Enterprise G Titan build. That was one of the tons of grays that I had, and I've already thinned that down. So what I'm going to do is take one, it's got a graduated thing. Looks like there's 20 milliliters, and 2 40 milliliters, and 3 60 milliliters. Okay, so we're going to move that into here. That's going to lighten everything up. I'm going to give it a good stirry stir. I'm going to add some more thinner to it. That'll help the colors play nice together. Get a big scoop of that. And yeah, I like that better already. Now I'm just going to mist this over the gray that I've got, because the majority of my ship is the original gray. I've already painted a lot of that, so what I just need to do is mist this over it and we'll be good to go. Well, we've certainly sprayed a lot of gray today. Despite the sunny skies, it's been a gray day today. And the next step is the one that's easiest, is just let it all dry. Let it all dry, come back and start stripping it all off and see what we've got left underneath. And hello, it's Thursday, the gateway to the weekend, yay! I'm just doing a little bit of detail painting this morning, trying to get into my day, trying to work up the courage, because what we're going to do today is we are going to spend the day removing the masks that we spent the last 3 days putting on. I have already done some preliminary demasking, and you end up with nice crisp lines like that. That's just loveliness. That's just sheer unadulterated loveliness. Personally, I love my loveliness to be adulterated, but you know, unadulterated is good too. And I'm working on, well, now see, here's one. I have not taken these masks off yet, but I've started touching up some of the grays and some of the detailing. I had this more of a bright white, and it was too much, so I just put a light coat of the gray over top of it. But now we're going to start removing oh, look at that. Start removing the mask. Now this is going to have a wash over this, a gray wash. It's not going to quite be black. It's going to be more of a grungy gray, because I don't want to add too much stark contrast into this. My example, of course, is what's on the packaging here, and you can see that there's some sootiness in that, but it's not a really dark black wash. It's more of a medium to gray, so we're going to do a diluted wash on it. But let's start taking some of these, because there's nothing better than seeing the stark contrast here between the red and the gray here. I'm just sliding the knife up under and working my way around, pulling these off. I am really happy with how the red, the Comart, and that's not, sorry, it's not Comart, it is Vallejo. The red paint is not even giving the slightest budge that it might be pulling up. It's sticking, and it has dried in place very nicely. And we're just going in here and removing. Oh, well, it might have been a little bit off the target on that one. So we can fix that when it comes time to put the wash over it. But look at all that. See, now that's just loveliness. This is the payoff for all of the toil and the prep and the laying down of things and painting and laying down and painting. Once you finally start removing some of that, you really can get a much better idea of why it is we've been working the way we've been working. I'm going to move some of this off the table, and we can just concentrate on one hull at a time and getting the mask removed. Yeah, I'm just going to start pick a section. In this case, it's the top hull. And I'm just going to start removing masks. Now, like I said, the important thing, well, two important things. A, get yourself a really sharp blade and Band-Aids just in case you need those. But a really sharp blade, and because so many of these masks overlap each other, it would be kind of nice if you could remember which were the last ones you put down and take those off kind of backwards, you know, from last to first. Here we go. Let's see, let's just start picking a good spot here. And slide the blade up under. Oh, look at that. This is when the color starts coming back to your kit. And you'll need a big old garbage can at your side, because you're going to start putting all this vinyl back in it. But, you know, slow and steady. You don't have to rip it off. It's not a Band-Aid. But we are just starting to reveal. You're going to get a lot of this. This is the bane of my existence, by the way. It's when I get something stuck to my finger, a piece of vinyl stuck to my finger, and I'm just shaking it and trying to get it off. This is where we're going to start seeing all the different colors showing back up. Now, it's also going to show us where we might have been a little sloppy with our vinyl placement. I'm seeing a spot right here that I could probably clean up that line, but we're going to see how the whole thing looks, and then determine how much of this we need to do the big cleanup on. But that's normal. That's SOP, as they used to say. That's standard operating procedure. And don't worry about this dust that's being created from the dried paint. It's because the vinyl is flexible, and the paint is not flexible, so you'll want to have a nice soft brush when you are done to kind of get the paint, or the dried paint boogers off of it. But we're just going to progress this way and keep going, and you'll start to see your Kronos 1 come to life. Now, I will tell you, there's one last bit that we do need to still paint, and that involves all of these guys under here, because I'll go ahead and take this off and show you what the deal is. There is a brown triangle shape underneath this mask, and then there's another raised plate on top of it, and we need to paint that bit red. So what we've got are one last set of masks that we will put down that will have a triangle shaped hole in it, and we will paint the red through that. But before we could do that, we have to get all these down. Now, it's just, that's how it goes because of the way the plates are formed. I could not paint those first and then still have the brown wrap around it because I wanted to paint all the brown stuff first. So, you know, I'm trying to streamline this task we have in front of us, but there are still some things that we're going to have to go back and repaint. So it's not like you can get the brown paint out only once and that's the only time you're ever going to have to use it. Look how nice those are turning out. Now there's a gold accent, a big shoulder piece that goes right up in here. So don't be too concerned if your paint masks aren't matching up in that corner. I don't have it in front of me and I don't want to go dig it out. But there's a corner piece that goes on right here that covers up some of that. Now we're going to go all the way back. All the way back, my friends, to the white that was under the dark light. Oops, that's underneath that. I should have been more careful. I should have put this piece on first before I started masking, because there is a white piece of vinyl here that is now trapped underneath. It's trapped underneath this part. And I have to kind of peel it out from underneath it. But look, there's the white we started with. And I'm going to shut you off because we don't need you for a while, and I can do that with my toe. Here we can see some of these shapes starting to come back out. It's just important that you remember which of these are pieces of vinyl that needs to come up and which of these are shapes that are supposed to stay gray. Oh yeah, that's looking nice. And like I say, I'll give this a dusting after we get done, because what you might be seeing that looks like paint is the dried stuff that's sitting on top of the hull here. Here we can see some of the dark brown and the tan and the crimson color. And if when you were painting your crimson you had some variations in it, like get this out of the way, like the where it was going over the white, it was a little bit brighter. All of that stuff is going to show back up when you are removing everything, so it's not a strictly monolithic color. Okay, now these are white masks here. Oh, look at that. This is where the candy cane comes back in. This will all get dirtied down a bit once we put the wash over it. But this is why I make template sets. To get something clean and beautiful like this. Let me get this last guy off of the side. Make sure that I want to make sure I'm doing this in camera, but I don't want to sacrifice this coming off just to make a good camera angle either. There we go. So that's the white stripe that was underneath. This should be fun because this is that multi-toothed part that is all one piece at the back here. That's like instant detail there. And this is where the vinyl starts piling up. So I like to think of it as this is the time where all of the messiness starts to pay off, because then you start to see the nice clean lines that you get all at once. Let's get these corner guys off. I'll do this side and then turn the camera off and do the other side, and then we'll bring the camera back to do one side of the bottom so that you can see what that looks like as well. This grill I just covered with a piece of painter's tape. You don't, since it's a couple straight angles, you don't need to mask for that. You just use straight painter's tape. And this is the last one on that pylon support, or the nacelle support. Look at that. Okay, so that's all of those. Let's get these guys. And of course, all of these colors are up to you. So how drastic or how contrasty they look is up to the colors that you choose. If you wanted to do two grays that were just, you know, slightly off, one tone off of each other, you would end up with a very subtle checker, or a very subtle pattern here. Very subtle contrast. I kind of have a tendency to overdo these and then, or overdo the contrast and then walk it back a little bit with the washes and the dry brushing later on. That's just personal preference. And I also will have a tendency to overdo contrast and color so that it makes better pictures when I am making my instructions. If I was doing something that was in gray tones, I would tendency to make them more dramatic so that they show up better on video or in the photos that I take than if I were normally just to do this for my own enjoyment. Now, normally you could, if you were doing a starship that was just variations of grays, you could do a blending coat in a lighter version to kind of blend the contrast back. But because we have so many different colors here, a single blending coat wouldn't necessarily be the best idea. But you could do it with an overall wash, and that's what we're going to do. Hoping that the like the grunge wash that I put over this is going to unify the paint scheme a little bit more. But you can see now we're back to taking down the masks that we put down way at the beginning, and back when you didn't think that that brown was much of a contrast to the primer gray, you were probably right. But now, since I put this darker gray over it, the brown is much more of a contrast. Now there's one big white shape here that has to come off. Again, this has been covered up since the very beginning. And that comes a little bit off here. Okay, so outside of this one right here that needs fixing, I think we're in very good shape here. We're going to do these, like I said, we're going to paint these on, and then we'll be done with it. Alrighty, there is an entire top of a hull with no masks left on it, and I have a commensurate sized pile of vinyl that just went in the trash. There's a couple of boo-boos that I want to fix, or a couple of non-niceties that could have been nicer. And I have to tell you, I would rather do this. I'll do this all day long rather than spending every day with masking tape and trying to do off each little shape. There's a couple of spots where the vinyl covered over the gap between some plates, and I am just going to go and get my head for my goggles, because my eyesight is not what it used to be. There's a space between these two right here that got covered over by the vinyl, and I'm just going to go in with the brush and touch that. And I think even this brush is too big. I need a wee tiny brush. The wee tiny brush. Hello, wee tiny brush. I just bought some new brushes the other day and for this exact purpose. So let's get the wee tiny brush out. And I'm just using the gray that I mixed up, which is the same color that I airbrushed. And I am just cleaning up some edges here. Don't like that. I got some stray hairs on the brush. I hate a stray hair on a brush, because that is going to be the one that jumps out when you least want it to. So a little trimmy on the brush. Nice thing about these raised plates is you can just kind of set your brush down between them and drag it across. It must have been either this mask moved or I was just not thinking when I put it down, because all around the sides of it. And I know it's, I can tell that when the overlap is equal on one side to the underlap on the other, that I just needed to move it over a little bit. But see, yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm doing. Just go ahead and paint that back in. Do some touch-ups on this guy over here that I first noticed. Man, this brush is just not great. It's just one wild hair after another. Did not get my money's worth out of that one. There, I just cleaned up that edge. Alrighty, and now it's time to do the bottom side, or the underside of this hull. And again, I'll do half of it on camera here, and then take the camera off and do the other half. Next steps after that, and I usually just say this for my own mental clarity. The next step after that would be to go ahead and paint these guys in, mask these off and paint those in. And then after that's had a chance to dry, put a clear coat over the whole thing. That's going to protect these colors, put a nice shell over everything, and it's going to make it easier for the wash to go in and settle in the nooks and crannies, rather than just, sucking into the top and drying. So let's go ahead and get these guys off. Start with this front edge. Front edge was a lot simpler in this version, in Kronos 1, than it is in the Katinga, so far as number of colors. It's just this one big beige plate here, and the rest of it is gray, whereas last time it was a veritable cornucopia of brown colors. But that looks great. Okay, so I am not filling in all the holes it said to fill in. I'll let the weathering take care of a lot of that, but I'm not going to go back in and pop in all of those windows back in place. So we're going to start on this side, and then we're just going to start removing. And like I said, do from the last to the first. And these are the masks that I put back over these white areas to protect them. So let's get those off. And there we see that red stripe that was underneath it. Okay. Triangles here. Yeah, that one went crooked. The mask itself is fine. I just put it down crookedly. We've got the interior of the pylons here as well, and that was just a dark gray masking, so let's get those off. Is that in? It's in camera. I did not, I kept more, I'll tell you the truth, I kept more with the plating that is in the design here than I did. Let me see if I can find a good reference here. Yeah, they kind of went nuts on the inside, in the inboard side of the pylons there. I kind of kept more with my original Katinga masks for this, so that could be an area that is up for your own interpretation, depending on how much dark gray you want to show up in there. I think this is plenty. Yeah, and then that's a bit of schmutz. Okay, let's go ahead and continue getting these guys off. We're going to do the centerpiece here. There is a dark brown shape here that needs to be masked in and painted over with the light tan, so we've got that to do. That again was sort of like the same situation we had with the other vinyl, is that we couldn't, because of the way the other vinyl colors were going down, we couldn't do all of that color at one time, so we're going to have to come back in and fix that. And here we've got all of the different colors peeking back out. And we've got white shapes underneath here as well. But you see, I'm not being all that kind to it. It's pretty resilient stuff. Now this is the red mask. That's okay, if they rip, you're never going to need them again. So. And then, believe it or not, there is a gray mask underneath here to show off that gray. This is the dark brown one, yeah. Flip the viewer around to make sure I can see what's going on. Oh, that's right. That reminds me, there is a gray shape right here that needs to be repainted. So we need to mask that, and I think, well, a forward-thinking person would have masked that to begin with, so that the original gray that we did would have shown up underneath. So yeah, there's going to be opportunities, because this brown shape here has to be masked still. So even after we get all of these off, there's still another round of masking we need to do, another round of painting. Okay, this is where it gets dramatic because of that white shape that's underneath everything. I was afraid of that, and that's because the red, when I was spraying it, I noticed it was a little runny, and it did run under the white mask there just a little bit. So we're going to have to get the white paint out and See, it's cleaner on this side because the paint had dried a little bit. Ooh, we got some schmutz here that needs to get cleaned up. Yeah, we've got some opportunities here for cleanup, but again, not as bad as if you were starting this from scratch. Curious to see how all of these guys turned out. The brown triangles at the bottom here. Oh, I like the fact that it's got a little bit of red coming in there. That was maybe me not being as clean with my paint, but I'm getting a nice ombre effect here of the brown blending into the red. Oh. Okay, now these are the tan masks. Cannot see that my tongue is hanging out in the typical modeler's pose of concentration. Okay, is that all of them from that side? And again, the pile of vinyl here that's coming off. Okay, get this stuff on my thumb. Just finishing the touching up on the bottom half of the back end of the saucer. I almost said back end of the ship here. This shape here had to be painted in, so basically I had painted dark brown underneath it, put that mask on it, masked it off, sprayed some of the light tan over top of it, and pulled that mask off, which gave me that chevron shape. And I had a boo-boo here that I had to fix up. For some reason I gouged it and needed to redo the white. Now these guys here I just painted in by hand rather than remasking and respraying the gray. Simple enough to do that. And when I hit this with the clear coat, it's going to make those brush strokes disappear. So now we're actually to a point where we can do a little bit more construction. I've got these two detail parts that need to go on. We can go ahead and get those glued down because really there's nothing else in our way at this point from doing that. There's no big decal that has to go there. There's there's some brass that goes around it, or brass decals, but there is no per se, there's no like we don't have the big Klingon decal that had to wrap around anything there. So I'm just looking at the instructions to see what they are telling me, or looking at the paint guide here, and it looks like there's a big black circle in the middle of that piece I need to do. So maybe I should go ahead and paint that in first before I stick it down. Okay, before I strip the other hull, I wanted to take a second and put some more color on these necks. Now this is the gold. This is meant to simulate the brass plates or the brass color that goes on there. Now I've got masks for each individual one, but it was easier to spray them. Particularly with metallic, you get a much more even and clean spray if you can do it all in one big area. So those have been those have been sprayed, and then when that's dry, I can mask them individually and then hit it with a gray, which will go in between each one of those plates. And it's also the color of these wing or shoulder tips These are the ones I was saying that kind of hide all of the nonsense that's happening up there in the corner. They kind of go like that and give you a little bit of an epaulette effect right there on the corner. So getting a good gold spray on those. I can understand not replicating that in brass. That would be a big chunk of brass. So we'll put these to the side and let them dry. I've got the second hull mask removed. I haven't done any of the touch-up painting yet. But you can see this is a lot cleaner, and that's because that red was not as runny this time as I was painting the last time. But here's both of them, lest you think I am resorting to some sort of photographic trickery. Let's see, we got this. Oh, we got this. Let's set those inside like that. And like I said, now we are ready to do a little bit of touching up, a little bit of fixing where I had oversprayed or hadn't quite had the masks line up the way they're supposed to. But we've got this piece to go on here and this, and then once I've got this touched up, we'll do the last remaining red triangles on there. Right, winding down for the night, and I'm starting to play with the stock round 2 lighting kit. And I've got a lot of the lights in the forward head. Well, of course it's the forward head. It's the only head we've got on it. And using the colored plastic, I've got the torpedo in there. I mean, it's a light. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't fire. It's just constantly on. And I've got that taped down. See, I'm not even paying attention to the compressor anymore. I've got the head plugged in, and it's got 2 lights shining back. It's got 2 lights shining in, and then there are 2 more lights shining in. That is woefully inadequate to light up all of the windows in the bulb. And I am stuck with the moral quandary of, do I just say, well, that's what they're providing, that's the stock kit, and leave it at that, or do I try to improve it and add to it? Now, the stock kit is meant to run on the battery pack that's in the base, that's in the back end, and it's got a switch and a battery pack. I'm afraid if I add any lights to that, I am begging for that battery pack to wear out and not be sufficient. I am not going to try to add any voltage to it. That would be more brain work than I want to do. So I am concerning myself with whether or not I can see any lights through here, and I still don't even have the decal on it yet. I'm not putting the photo etch here, but I am going to put the decal over it. So we've got this lit up nice. These are just woefully pathetic for what we're asked to do, and of course this one goes up into the tower. The red lights, the ones that have their own designated bulbs, we're in great shape for those. Those are nice and bright, and they're going to do everything we want them to do, and everything is happy and good. Where we're running into some problems is in the supplemental lighting. So we've got this coming back. You can see on the table all of the green lights that make up the new nacelles lighting. We've got 2 sets of blinkies. We've got one set of blinkies that are the strobes. I call them strobes because they're very quick on and off. They don't, I mean, it is flash. And those go on the leading edge of the nacelles. Those go right up here at the front. Those go right there. And there's a little light piping that shines down through there. There is a constantly on set of cool whites that also go in the nacelles, and they go back here and they light up that little light pipe that shines through the back. They sit somewhere like that. And then we have all of these nice flat green ones that go to light up the inner grill. That's all well and good, and I understand that completely. There is a set of of warm whites that flash, and they flash a little slower than the strobes. I don't know if I can show them whether you can discern the difference, but it seems to be almost a 2-for-1. If you almost a 2-for-1. This goes in, one of them goes in the bottom of the secondary hull, and the other one goes in this spot in the neck. And they're warm whites because they get a red beacon over top of them, or something you have to paint red in this case. I don't know why they didn't provide those in red plastic. But we've got those that are warm whites. And it's easy to tell anything in this kit that's a warm white is meant to go behind a red diffuser, and anything that's a cool white is just a light. I truly am shutting down now. I swear I am. But I wanted to do one last thing, and I wanted to sing the praises yet again. New World's Paint, New World's Paint, New World's Paint, Zenith Black. New World's Paint, Zenith Black. Why? Why am I singing the praises of that? Because one measly coat of Zenith Black covers, and anybody who's built this kit knows these are clear parts here. And let me cover up the bulb, and you will see how effective that is at light blocking. See, all we're seeing now is we're seeing the actual bulb there. But one coat completely covers the parts of this clear part that need to have the light block. Look at the light spill. You can actually see it going out at the weird angle. You're actually seeing the light spill going out, and you're not seeing the part that's painted. Now, if I paint the top of these bulbs so that you don't see them, that would be the true test. Actually painting the what am I doing? I am looking for a piece of paper towel so I can dry this brush off. If I took some of this paint and I painted the top of the bulb, so all that you're seeing is the side of the bulb where the light is shining out. That's almost as effective as using that liquid electrical tape that has a really foul smell and is thick and is gooey. But once we get all these and get the wires out of the way so that they're not pinched around that joint, we can push that down into shape, and all you're seeing now is nothing because it's not in camera. All that you're seeing is where the light is supposed to be coming out. Morning, cats and kittens. It's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. It's the last work day on the Kronos 2 for this week, and I've got one last important bit of painting to do on the secondary hulls. And that is to bring out the red shapes that are happening right up in here. And those need to be painted on top of the brown that we've got. So all of this is sat overnight. It's dried. It's lovely. It's beautiful. It's a wonder to behold. But I need to put these masks down, and then I can get this off the table and get back on to some of the other stuff that I'm starting to work on, which is the lighting of the basic build, the lighting which is the round 2 kit. The round 2's lighting, and I'm starting to work on some bits of that, and hopefully I'll have something to show by the end of the day on it. So, without much more ado, let's make sure I've got all of the masks I need. There's one set there, and there's the other set. So good, we're ready to go. Alrighty, this is a case where it was easier to do, just as easy to do 2 as to do 1. This is the last bit of painting that I need to do right away, at least on these hulls. And basically what I've done is I've just taken these shapes and take the insides of them out. This would be a typical inside. Take the inside of it out, and then we put the donut hole over top of the plate that needs to get the paint. We put a little of the red paint in the brush, and we spray it on. Now, I need to make sure that I have not overly diluted this. I want to put it on pretty much full strength. because it's the runny paint, and I want to, that's going to slide under the masks, or it has a tendency to creep under, and I want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I am going to do light coats, do a light coat so that it's not so watery, just over the area, and it might take a couple passes, but better a couple light passes than anything that is too runny. And like I said, it's easier to do both of these now that I've got the paint in the brush. Get the other one out, push this one to the back. Trying to keep the overspray to a minimum as well, because this red is very potent and will get everywhere. So okay, now this is dry. Put that to the back. Do this one again for the second coat. Alrighty, time to remove those masks. I've been playing around with some other stuff here that's in the way whilst I was waiting for that red paint to dry, but I think we're good. Let's go ahead and clean up a little bit and get these guys off. I've already removed the surrounding tape that was the you know, the overspray tape. These look excellent. That's the schmutz. Yeah, buddy. Very happy with those. Now that's what you get for doing it nice and slow, and a couple of coats of a stiffer paint. Don't let it get too runny. Look at that. Nothing to complain about there. Very, very happy. I might take... No, I'm not even going to mess with it. As I said, there's a little bit here where it could go bigger, but I'm not even going to mess with that. See, now we'll go ahead and take this tape off. Oh, took the first one off. Lovely. Could not be happier with those. A couple of those came off with the mask. Wonderful. This represents the last of the major painting on the secondary hull. Hey, since we've got all the painting done on the secondary hull, the big chunks, we are going to, before I take a late lunch, I am going to put a clear coat of satin on it. I forgot there's one last mask here to remove. There we go. Had to get that guy. So, clear coat of satin on this, and you can see I'm starting to put the head together and working my way down the neck. Also working on the back end of this as well. The desk looks a little neater than it did a while ago, and that's because I've moved some of the larger parts off that were just taking up space and distracting me. And right now I want to do something fairly small and localized, and that is to put masks over top of these guys so that when I go to spray the gray back on top, they will be protected and stay gold. They will stay golden, pony boy. And if I'm remembering this correctly, I've got enough in each of these rows to cover all of these shapes. Then I need to see what little details are left. Some of this, or majority of this actually, is going to be covered by not only the faux brass decals, but by actual decals. So I don't want to spend a lot of time painting something that's going to end up being covered up. This is where it helps to check your references and your detail and your instructions and all of that, just to see, because you can get enamored of trying to paint the whole thing with an airbrush, but some things are going to require just a little hand brushing here and there, and some things you don't want to spend too much energy and mental capital on, only to have them turn out to be covered up by something else. So it's going pretty quickly. As I recall, I went through this many times before. So the only thing that's bumming me out so far about this build is that I know, using the round tooth stock kit, we are not going to have a lot of light coming out of the Cobra head. We'll have plenty of light at the torpedo. We'll have plenty of torpedo tube. We'll have We'll have plenty of light at the bridge dome. But where we won't have it is just in the general window lighting. I don't think they provide enough lighting in that lighting kit for that. So great. These are, this side's done. Just making sure all of the angles are right. There. So we put all the masks on that side, now we're going to flip it around and do the other side. Alrighty, I'm getting ready to close up the top of the Cobra head. Now I have painted everything white inside there to bounce as much light as we're going to get, the pathetically small amount that is. It's bouncing it around as best it can. I've put the clear inserts back in. I was thinking I wasn't going to do that, but then I saw what it looked like without it and figured it wouldn't hurt. I could frost those. Maybe that will help diffuse the light a little bit. But really the last thing to do is to push that in and glue it down. Oh, sorry, in camera. Push that in and glue it down. I've got all of these neck clamps that are probably ready to come off. Let me see if everything is dry. Yeah, these are ready to come off. That glue sets up pretty quickly, so I was just using that for effect, more or less. But okay, so next step would be to go ahead and push this in. I've taken the pin out here so that I could slide it up underneath the neck there. Push it in and then get ready to glue it down. So let me swath this. Now we are getting some lights out of the front edge. Some of that's twinkling in there. You're seeing some of the light twinkle. Not nearly as bright as I would like. Not nearly as bright as the one with Ralph's lighting kit will be, because I am going to be putting some of that cob lighting in there, and you know, that should brighten up everything considerably. But I just need to get a liberal amount of the MEK in this joint, get ready to smash it in there, and then it'll be ready for the gray touching up, I think. It's time to close down on a Friday afternoon. I think this is a good spot to show our progress for the week. Of course, we don't only have just this one, but we've got this other hull ready to go. Top and bottom. So that hull is ready to go. Of course, there's the other neck. This is the one that will be getting the Tenna Controls lighting kit, which is a completely different animal than the Katinga that's out there now. So don't be using the Katinga for the Kronos 1. It's a different animal. The Katinga is a fine and mighty board, but it's for the Katinga. It's not for the Kronos 1. There are different functions. You'll be sorry. Ralph is making a new and improved Kronos 1 board, and that's the one you're going to want. But here's the... Here we go. If we can kind of hold that out there to get an idea. And then here's the... See, we're starting to fit the lights in. I don't have anything plugged in at this point here because that would just be too much work to do at this point. And it's Friday afternoon, and I want to stop. So I think I'm at a point where I can say, hey, at least the painting masks are done. And that, gentle viewer, is where we are going to leave it for this week. This is the first full week of work that I've had to do on this. I've first been able to spend a whole week on it. And I think we've gotten pretty far along. Look at this. Look at this. Suck in the beauty. The beauty, the awe, and the mystery that is a painted Kronos 1 hull. Now, this is going to get mucked up and dirtied up and all that. But imagine this coming straight out of the... Klingon shipyards with all this glory on it, and that's not even counting any of the decal or any of the the brass etch / brass decals that we've yet to put on this. So we've got a ways to go, but I'm not going to let that kind of work hold up the fact that I need to get these painting templates out to the world so that we can continue, because everything else from this point pretty much is construction and lighting and decaling and brass etch, and really a lot of the paint per se is done. At least I mean, there's a lot of cleanup that has to be done, but a lot of the figuring out of the templates and all that is done. So until next week, when it'll be glorious week 3 on the Kronos 2 build. So until then, y'all be good to each other, be safe, be smart. Be back next week, and may there be honor on your house.
I'd give real money if you'd shut up.